It is the last week of March. The ground outside is still hard in the mornings. You reach into a bucket in the corner of an unheated room, push your fingers down through cool, damp sand, and pull out a carrot. Orange, firm. It snaps clean when you bend it. It tastes like October. That carrot came out of something that cost less than a gallon of milk to build. $5, 12 months ago, give or take. No fridge ran for it, no freezer hummed, no power bill carried its weight. Now, before I show you what's inside that bucket, there is something you need to understand about the white box humming in your kitchen. Because most folks have one food in their crisper drawer right now that is rotting twice as fast as it should. And there is one small mistake, one, that ruins the whole batch. That mistake is where I want to start. If you are the kind of person who keeps a few jars on the shelf and an eye on the weather, pull up a chair. Hit subscribe if it suits you, not because some algorithm asks, but because this is a quiet corner of the internet for folks who still trust their own two hands. And down in the comments, I want to hear one thing later on. We will get to it. For now, just listen. My grandfather kept a winter's worth of food under the back porch of a house that did not have a working refrigerator until I was almost 10 years old. I remember the porch more than I remember the house. 3 plank steps, a hinge door cut into the wood skirting, and a smell underneath that I have never smelled anywhere else since. Damp sand, old apples, a little cold iron. He never once paid an electric bill on that food. He just opened the door, reached in, and ate. Now think about your own kitchen for a second. Think about that crisper drawer. Think about the bag of carrots you bought 2 weeks ago that are already going soft and bending like wet rope when you try to slice them. Think about the potatoes in the pantry that taste a little sweet and a little gummy now, not like they did at the farm stand. Think about the apples that went milly in 3 days flat. None of that is your fault. You did everything the box told you to do. The box is the problem. We have been taught 2 generations deep now that food only stays good when it is plugged in. That a thing called the cold chain, trucks and warehouses and refrigerated shelves, is the only honest way to keep a carrot alive between the field and the fork. That is not a tradition. That is a sales pitch. It is the kind of pitch that profits a great deal when every household in America believes it cannot feed itself without a machine running 24 hours a day. The Amish never bought that pitch. They never made a show of refusing it either. They just kept doing what their grandfathers did and their grandfathers before them all the way back across the water. They kept eating, right through the winter, right through the lean weeks of March when the grocery shelves in town were running thin and the prices were running high. Quiet, steady, no fuss. What they were doing, and what your grandparents were probably doing too, if you go back far enough, has a plain old name: root cellaring. But here is the part most folks get wrong when they hear that word. They picture a big concrete room under the house, a dugout hill with a wooden door, something a man builds in a weekend with a backhoe, something you cannot do in a townhouse, a trailer, a 5th floor walk-up. So they shrug and they close the tab and they go back to the crisper drawer. That is not what I'm here to talk about. I am here to talk about something that fits in the corner of a closet. Something that cost about $5 at any hardware store in the country. Something a woman in a wheelchair could build at a kitchen table in 20 minutes and tuck behind a coat. The Amish use the big cellars where they can, sure, but the little version, the one I'm going to show you, is the one that travels. The one that works in an apartment in Cleveland just as well as it works on a farm in Lancaster County. And the reason it works, the actual mechanism of it, has nothing to do with magic or secret knowledge or some old country recipe whispered between brothers. It has to do with a simple truth about a carrot that almost nobody talks about anymore. A truth your refrigerator has been quietly working against every single day since the day you plugged it in. When you understand what a carrot actually needs to stay alive, and yes, alive is the word, you will start to see that fridge a little differently. You will start to see the whole grocery store a little differently. So let us walk through it, slowly, the way my grandfather would have, sitting on those plank steps with a cup of coffee gone cold in his hand. He would not have called it science, he would have called it noticing. And the noticing starts with one fact that almost nobody gets told. A carrot pulled out of the ground in October is not dead. That is the fact almost nobody gets told. It is dormant. It is sleeping. It is still breathing, slow and shallow, the way a bear breathes in a den. The same is true of a beet, a potato, a turnip, a parsnip, a cabbage, a hard winter squash, an apple off a tree. They are all still alive in there. And like anything alive, they want three specific things to keep on living: steady cool, damp air, and dark. That is the whole secret. Three things. Now look at what a refrigerator actually does. It runs cold, yes. That part it gets right. But the air inside is dry, painfully dry. A fridge pulls moisture out of every living thing in it, which is exactly why your carrots go limp in a week and your lettuce turns to slime. And every time somebody opens that door to grab a soda, the temperature swings 5 or 10 degrees and the food inside takes another small hit. Cold, dry, and cycling. 2 out of 3 wrong. That is not storage. That is slow execution. I will give you the honest hedge right now because I owe it to you. This method I am about to show you will not keep everything. It will not keep meat. It will not keep milk or cheese. It will not keep leafy greens or berries or anything soft. What it keeps is what the old folks used to call the keepers. Root vegetables, hard fruits, cabbages and squash. The plain food that fed this country for 300 years before a single home had a Frigidaire. That is the food this is for. If a man tells you he has a trick that keeps everything for a year on a shelf, you should walk the other way. Here is the piece of it that is going to make you a little angry once you sit with it. The food most Americans store wrong every single day is the potato. Cold temperatures change how a potato tastes. They convert the starch inside it into sugar, which is why store-bought potatoes have that faintly sweet, gummy feel when you fry them now, and why they brown too dark too fast. A potato does not want a refrigerator. It never did. A potato wants a cool, dark corner around 40 degrees and a little humidity. Your grandmother knew this without ever using the word starch. She just kept them in a burlap sack under the stairs. The plain communities in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indiana never stopped knowing it either. Tradition holds that the practice came across with the first wave of German-speaking farmers in the 1700s, and it has been quietly handed down at kitchen tables ever since. While the rest of the country was busy buying chest freezers in the 1950s and forgetting what their own grandparents did, the Amish were still putting food up the same way. Not as a statement, not as a protest, just because it works. And because a method that works does not need updating every 10 years. Sit with that for a minute. Some of you are remembering something right now. A dirt floor basement at a farmhouse you visited as a kid. A wooden crate of apples under a piece of burlap. The sound your shoes made on packed earth. The smell I tried to describe earlier. Sand and apples and a little cold iron. That memory is not nostalgia. That is information. Your own family knew how to do this, somewhere back along the line, and the knowledge did not die. It just got quiet. So here is the bucket, the whole $5 version of it, laid out plain. You need a food-grade 5-gallon bucket. The hardware store sells them for about $4. The kind with a lid that snaps on, but you will not snap it tight. You need a bag of clean play sand from the same store, or coarse sawdust if you can get it from a sawmill or a woodworker friend, about $1 worth for 1 bucket. That is it. That is the whole shopping list. Many of you already have one of these out in the garage holding nails. Inside the bucket, the order matters. An inch of sand on the bottom, damp like a wrung-out sponge, not wet. Then a single layer of carrots, unwashed, brushed off dry with the green tops twisted off and a little stub of stem left on. Lay them so they do not touch each other. Then another inch of sand, then another layer. Carrots, sand, all the way up. Finish with sand on top. Set the lid on loose so the bucket can breathe. The sand is doing 4 jobs at once. It holds moisture against the skin of the root. It blocks every photon of light. It buffers the temperature against the small swings in the room. And it keeps each carrot from touching its neighbor, which matters more than anything because of one mistake I am about to tell you that ruins more buckets than any other thing combined. The mistake is washing them. That is it. That is the whole thing. Folks pull their carrots out of the garden, bring them inside, and the first thing they do, because every cooking show on television has trained them to do it, is run them under the tap. They scrub off the dirt, they feel proud of the clean orange pile on the counter, and they have just killed every one of those carrots for storage. Water on the skin of a root vegetable invites rot the way an open door invites flies. Brush the dirt off dry with your hand or a soft rag. Leave the filled dust on. That dust is part of what keeps it alive. Wash it the day you eat it, not the day you store it. Now, where do you put the bucket? This is the part folks overthink. You do not need a cellar. You do not need a hole in the ground. You need a corner of the house that stays between about 32 and 45 degrees through the winter. An unheated garage works. A north-facing closet on an outside wall works. A crawl space works. A mud room with the heat vent closed off works. If you live somewhere with hard winters, a covered hole in the yard lined with straw works, and the Amish do this all the time. The bucket is the cellar. That is the whole trick. You are not building a room. You are building a small climate inside a 5-gallon pail. Let me give you the food by food, quick. Carrots and beets, packed in damp sand the way I described, will hold through the full winter and well into spring in my experience. Many homesteaders find 6 to 10 months, and a careful hand gets longer. Potatoes do better in dry sawdust than in sand, and tradition holds they keep 6 to 8 months that way in a cool corner. Apples want their own bucket entirely because they give off a gas that causes everything stored near them to ripen too fast. 4 to 6 months on their own, wrapped loose in newspaper. Cabbage gets wrapped head by head in paper and laid on a shelf nearby. Hard winter squash, butternut, Hubbard, acorn, does not want sand at all. It wants a dry shelf at around 50 degrees, and a good Hubbard will sit there grinning at you until February. Here is what I want from you. Down in the comments, before you click away to something else, if your mother or your grandmother or some old aunt kept a root cellar or a sand bucket or a crock in the basement, tell me what was in it. Tell me what your people stored. I read these. I read them because there is a whole map of forgotten American food knowledge sitting in those comment threads, and every time somebody types out what their grandmother kept in the corner of her kitchen, another piece of that map gets drawn back in. Your family knew something. Tell me what they knew. Now, step back from the bucket for a second. Step back from the sand and the carrots and the lid set on loose. A $5 pail in a cool corner is not really about carrots. It is about a small thing you say to yourself every time you walk past it without ever speaking out loud. It says the grocery store is a convenience, not a master. It says the power grid is a tool, not a leash. It says that the trucks stop running for a week, and they have stopped in living memory more times than people remember. Your table does not stop with them. That is what a full bucket means. That is the only reason any of this matters. If you are the kind of person who would rather have a full bucket in the corner than another app on your phone, you already know where you belong. Stick around. There are folks here who think the way you think, and we tend to talk plain. That is all I will say about it. The work matters more than the asking. So how do you actually start? Start with one bucket, one vegetable. Make it carrots. They are the most forgiving thing in the lineup, and a first-time bucket of carrots almost always works if you keep your hands off the tap and your sand a little damp. Get that one right before you scale to potatoes and apples and the rest. Check the bucket once a month. Pull from the top, not the middle, so you do not disturb what is sleeping below. If you find a soft one, take it out and eat it that night. One soft carrot is a meal. One soft carrot left in the bucket is a lost batch. I think about my grandfather a lot when I pack a bucket. He never called any of this a system. He never called it food storage or preservation or self-reliance or any of the words folks use now. He called it putting food up. That was the whole phrase, 2 syllables and a preposition. He did it in the fall because the fall was when you did it. He ate from it in March because March was when you ate from it. There was no ideology in his hands, there was just the work, and the quiet pride of opening a door in late winter and finding the carrots still snapping clean. That is the inheritance, not the bucket, the knowing. This will not replace your grocery store. It was never meant to. It will make the grocery store optional for one part of your table for a few months of the year, and that one small piece of optional is enough to change how a winter feels. That is the honest size of this. Not a revolution, just a corner of your life that the trucks do not have to drive to anymore. Small, quiet, yours. Next time I will show you the jar on the Amish kitchen shelf that does not need a fridge and does not need canning. The one that sits there for 6 months, gathers no mold, asks for no power, and gets better the longer it waits. Bring a clean jar. You will want to make one before the week is out. The carrots will keep.